Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. Or just welcome for the first time, because who knows if you're actually here from the season 3 discussions or if you're just a new viewer who's somehow found this. But me and Bacon, are here to discuss the light novel of Mushoku Tensei. I know it's crazy, we're finally doing it. So I guess for context here, in this video we're covering volumes 1 to 7, which is covering just over the first season of the anime, like a little bit after it, like 4 episodes in the next season, I think. For context, I have read the entire light novel, and I guess technically I've read the light novel for the first 14 volumes, and then I swapped over to the web novel, because that's all there was translated at the time in English. And Bacon, I guess, Brett Bacon, you can give your history now if you want, but...
It's me. I'm here. And I think I watched the anime weekly for season 1.
Mm.
And then I watched it kind of weekly also for season 2 in batches. Whenever Ari was like, guys, we got to make a video. And I was like, yes,
Yep.
I'll turn up. And then now I made a vow. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna read it after it's done. Now it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've read it and listened to it. I've listened to some of the official audiobook, or there's a YouTube channel like AI reading basically.
Yep.
And I think it's all from the light novel. I think all the light novels are out. I don't know if there's actual difference in the wording and in the writing of the light novel and web novel, or if it's just a structure.
Yeah, my understanding is they're the plot contents are basically the same, but the writing is a lot better in the light novel, like quality wise.
But interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're all the same, with the exception of volume 7 that you've read now, that is not in the web novel at all. Yeah, pretty crazy.
So who wrote is the same person writing the web novel and light novel?
Yep, that's right. He wrote the web novel, and then now he's going. Well, I guess he's finished now writing the light novel, but he went back and wrote them all again. That's my understanding, at least. So I think a year ago, maybe. I think the last one came out, volume 26, but now he's doing some other stuff that comes afterwards. But pretty cool.
Yeah, I noticed there was 27 videos in this audio playlist I've got. So yeah.
So I thought there was something else we had to say beforehand. I don't know. I guess for me, I listened to the audiobook too. I like it a lot. Bacon, first time. I guess let's just go into it. What do you think, Bacon? I'm so curious. I'm on the edge of my seat. I could see this going either way. What do you think of these light novels?
All right, though. There's only one way it's going. It's because I've listened to how long has it been? So I started this whole shebang probably 2 and a bit weeks ago. Yeah, probably 20 days ago. And so I got through the first few slowly, but it's just I've been going through a light novel day.
Jesus.
This week it feels like. So I'm liking it. This is all
right,
good.
That's good.
And I think it's because I'm at the point where there's they've cut out enough content from the anime for me to be oh, now this is interesting. The first light novel, there's a lot of stuff, right? But there's also a lot of bare bones, we're setting out the world and all this stuff, setting
definitely.
things, putting foundations out. But now it's more character introspection, which you just don't get in the anime. And basically it's now I just we'll go back. I'm just reading. I'm just oh, that does sound like a cool fight. I remember that in the anime. Let's go watch the anime now. And I watched it in the anime. I was was a cool fight. Man, this is so fast paced. So
yeah,
it's kind of crazy, the difference. But yeah, Mushoku Tensei it's been pretty fun so far. It's hard to know how much I do like it. I think I definitely like it more, but I'm hard to be oh yeah, I know exactly how much I like it because I've read it before. But I definitely think puts on my mind. I've got some ideas. It's not as there's parts of it which I'm I definitely find the more the perverted aspects a bit more tolerable. But I don't think in the light novel he says I'm going to groom her, which I think is interesting. I don't think so. But then I think I may have missed some stuff, because there was one point in the anime where Eris, this is in the Beast Folk village. Eris and the main Ghislaine's brother are having a standoff, and then they do the anime it's in the Western shootout, and they're standing opposite each other and they go, who can draw the fastest and all that stuff. I don't think I remember that in the light novel. Maybe I just fell asleep and then woke up and then didn't reverse all the way back.
It's
'Cause
possible.
sometimes I listen to it when I'm in bed or something. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I have very incoherent thoughts. But yeah, Mushoku Tensei, pretty good. Want to read more? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking forward to when I'm on the new stuff. That's gonna be spicy. That's gonna be
Oh,
fun.
I can't wait, Bacon. My goodness, that's the best stuff that's coming up. But okay, you've said a lot here. Okay, let me firstly, I'm curious. We can go quite generally here because I know for if anyone who's
Mm.
listening right now who was listening to Bacon when he was talking in his discussions, the thing that would come up a lot was your trust in the author. You would say a lot of the time
Yeah,
you were kind of uncertain as to whether this is an author that you should trust because there's a lot of questionable things that happen in Mushoku Tensei. And you have to kind of trust that it's all going to lead somewhere or be like kind of significant. And I guess what was your impact of what was the impact of the light novel in this? Do you trust him more, less, any impact, no impact? What do you think?
I'm kind. I think the best way it bothers me less.
Mm,
So I guess when I say that, it means I should probably be trusting him more.
mm,
But I think it's because I know this part, and I think I've like thought of a couple reasons why why in the light novel makes sense. So basically, are we going to cover volume 7 in this? I guess we may as well
yeah.
because I've read up to that point. Even though we were going to do it like, oh yeah, volume season 2. Okay,
Mm,
let me put it this way: we're going to do like, oh, we're going to do all of anime, the season 1, right, and do all that
mm.
together. I reached the end of volume 6 and was like, oh, I kind of want to read more though,
That's
and
a great thing to hear.
I
I mean,
know,
there's
great
also like
issue.
we get aerial chapters and stuff. We're not exactly covering season one. There's some
Yeah,
season two stuff in this.
yeah, exactly. And so basically, like basically because there's a lot of times, and I don't know how much of it's talked about directly in anime. I think it is a lot more, but because anime is more visual, it tends to not be like your focus isn't as much basically on. There's a lot of times where it's like, oh, Rudy is getting hard right now. He's getting interaction,
Mm-hmm.
and then like that's like in retrospect that should be pretty um uh that should be a pretty major thing considering how much has been like talked about and how much he like talks himself down, that now like he's got to this point where he is impotent,
Mm-hmm.
that it like is majorly impactful on his like character and like kind of view of himself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you know it's like, yeah, I do think there's not necessarily trust in the author, but I do think there's like, anyway, this video I'm still playing. I still have a video idea that I want to make for Mushoku Tensei, where it is kind of talking about this like concept of like, basically it does have its cake and eat it too, and it still kind of says it's like, yeah, these guys are like bad, but this
Mm-hmm.
whole world's bad, so that's okay, and which is like fair enough. But I think also it kind of makes it hard to be like, yeah, this is like, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
more morally permissible, anyway, it is a bit hard to describe, but anyway, I don't find it as annoying. There's definitely some really awkward parts where I'm just like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of disgusting. um I
Mm-hmm.
think like that was the part where like Eris was on the ship and then they're
Yep.
describing her. I was like, okay, yeah, this is a bit uncomfortable to listen to. But
Mm-hmm.
or read. I can't remember which one I did at that point. But yeah, it's not as much of an issue, and I think it's probably because it's not wrapped in like an anime package, where it kind of feels like, oh, here are certain trips, and oh, I've seen this before, etc., etc., and the
Mm.
cynicism and the baggage that comes with that. So that's probably a good way to put it.
Yep. Okay. Um. Okay. This makes me think of a bunch of things. So, firstly, I think there's a lot of differences when it comes to Volume One specifically. The way this entire story is framed is, I think, slightly different in the anime and the light novel. In that,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to the light novel, I think the first chapter is a lot of exploring his kind of life in the other world. Like we get a lot
Yeah.
more details. Like in the anime, it's just like a compilation where it's like, okay, he's getting kicked out, and then he's like getting run over by a truck, and oh my gosh, he wakes up, and it's so quick. Whereas in this one, it's kind of like we learn about I think we learn about like a friend he had, like a friend who was a girl he had, and we learn about him and
Yes.
being competent in computers, and then like feeling overconfident, and then like not kind of pursuing that, or like
Yes.
because like
Totally.
thinking that
Totally.
he's too
Yeah.
good and he doesn't need to learn, and that like leads him to fail and go to this like bad school and everything. And I really like these details. I think it also helps kind of characterize him a little bit. I basically have a lot to say about this early stuff. So on one element, yes, it characterizes them a lot better. Okay. On the second element,
Certainly.
I think
I would
there's a
say
lot
that for
more.
every single character, every
Oh
single
yes,
character is
almost
characterized way
certainly.
better.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I'm going to
yeah.
ask you about. We have a few that you've before have said, oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know about this stuff, but I'll see what you think about them. Anyway, wait. So we got one, characterizes them all. Two, however, I do think that the opening of the light novel one is more comedic or like less serious, I think, than the anime. I think there's a lot of because we're directly inside Rudy's head, he's making a lot of like pervy or like comedic kind of remarks, which I think are a lot more like explicit or like very clear in the light novel, whereas they're not that like much of a thing in the anime. However, I do think that for the majority of the light novel, I think that it's much more serious compared to the anime, which kind of plays the serious moments for laughs. So it's a bit of a mix, but basically, I think this first light novel is a bit weird. Basically, it's like the probably the most different I think from the anime compared to all the other ones, which are kind of a bit more
Yeah,
close in terms of
well,
tone.
I was so I watched the anime like probably 3 years ago, so I
Sure.
couldn't remember it like that well.
Yeah.
So I didn't pick up on these things. But you are right when it like goes into his details about like how he ended up becoming like such a degenerate and how he's like from a quite a rich family, which I think we knew. But it kind of like yeah, and it kind of has his thought processes like when he's going to try and push these people out of the way of the van,
Yeah,
of the
including
truck.
Nanahoshi. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I actually think even when I was listening to the light novel, I was like, I don't know if that's Nanahoshi or not. But I was like, but then they said Dragon Soup Nanahoshi or whatever. I'm like, oh, PogChamp, here we go.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, I know that name.
True.
But
She's
yeah,
influencing
like,
the foods of this world. Crazy.
yeah. There's a couple of things which I'm like, because it's a light novel, it gets hidden so much better. Like, I mean, like the whole fit stuff, right? Like in the
Oh
light
yes.
novel, up until this point, I'm not sure if I'd have a clue if it was. There's like in the most recent, at the end of Volume 7, there's a bit where it's like, oh, he said something and it was a high feminine voice, and I was like, oh, okay. And you haven't really had a mention of Sylphie, but you're like, yeah,
And they have
like,
white hair, and it's like,
yeah,
can't be
it's
Sylvie,
like,
impossible.
yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I wouldn't have got it,
Yeah.
but yeah, because when you're reading it for the second time, like there's very few names. I'm like, oh, I actually don't know those people. Like the world's more interconnected. Like here's these random guys. Oh, turns out they were actually on Roxy's party. And I was like, oh, I didn't know
True.
that.
Oh my
Like kind
gosh.
of thing, right? So it tends to be more interconnected, and that's like cool. But also like makes the world feel a little bit more contrived. Like, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just one thing that you kind of notice when, like, man, this world feels so big. There's all these random people, and then they're actually all connected because it's kind of they are.
I
But
know the other day you messaged me about Bruno, and I was like, I don't know who the hell this is, but Bacon's randomly messaging about this random character that came back up.
Bruno,
But
yeah.
like,
So
yeah.
this was like basically there's this whole side story of this like guy who's really good at gathering information for Insuran nobles, and some person came to him to ask him if Ariel was dead. I don't know, remember which noble this was, but I think it's actually the same one that Eris was going to get given
Darius.
to. No,
Oh,
not
Palemon,
Darius. The one,
Emoto's spirit.
Plemon, yeah,
Yeah.
Plemon. I think Plemon, and Plemon likes Darius. Yeah, that's another thing. I've gotten way better in my head. It's like the actual names of people and
Yeah.
being like, okay, I got this like when I was watching the anime, like I didn't get like half of like the details of like what is like a Saint tier magic, because I remember when what is his name, Gaius in the Beast Folk village. It's like, I'm Saint tier swordsman. I'm just like, is he the Saint of Swordsman? Is that like his title? Like, is he the only one, or is there more than this? Like, I was kind of confused, but that's because like I was reading subtitles and I missed the part where it's like, oh no, that's just his rank, which means there's probably like 100 to like 1,000 of them maybe in the world. Like, this it's very rare, but it's very good. So it kind of helps put his stuff in context, and put stuff in context to like the dragon. It's like you only have to be an S tier party. You only have to have like 5 to 7 people that are all like advanced in something. You don't even have to have Saint tier to be like an S tier kind of thing. You just have to be good. So at like adventuring and stuff. But yeah, lots of little details. But yeah, sorry, went on another ramble. I'm just kind of seeing what Ari says and going off, riffing off of it.
No, this is good. Okay, well, next up, I would guess talk about the perspective chapters, we get a lot of them. I guess even immediately from chapter 2 of the first light novel, we get like a Lilia one, for instance. So there's a lot of them
That was
basically.
crazy.
Yeah,
No,
like
that
yeah.
it
Go
was a
ahead.
Lilia. Yeah, sorry, it was a Lilia one. No,
Yeah,
that
we learn
one's
a bit about her.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does enough to like. Okay, this is another thing. I'm like, is he has he got all these details laid out, or does he like just like it feels like maybe he like actually thinks of this new detail and adds it in later or something like that, or maybe just picks up now. But it
Mm-hmm.
is kind of cool when you're like, Lydia knows Paul. Okay, so Paul, yeah, and then it's like I'm not sure if it's said in chapter 2, but then later on it's like, yeah, Paul raped her.
Yeah.
This is another perspective chapter, in her second perspective chapter. Um,
Yep.
which is one of those things where it's like, yeah, like basically because it's like, oh, this is the world they live in. It's like, yeah, you have to kind of, yeah, which is like, wow, yeah, that's pretty awful. But we're still meant to make it like Paul, basically. That's
Yep.
like a heavy thing. But this is also a world where they murder people all the time. So it's like, and that's another thing where I'm like, violence, yeah, I don't care. Like it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Um, like in the Eris Goblin Slaying chapter or whatever. It's like this is the first time Eris ever murdered anybody before.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh jeez, okay.
Yep.
Like, oh my word. And they're just like, it's like there's very little moralizing,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. Like, which I think, yeah, which I think is fine. It just kind of leads to, I guess, some of the fan base around Mushoku Tensei. It makes more sense that the fans of Mushoku Tensei are sometimes how they are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, yeah, this is why I'm interested to read more, just see if it comes into more clear view, or if it's just like this is the world you live in, and you just got to kind of rock with it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like it's like there's one point where it's like, Rudy, you're perverted, but you're not as bad as the other like Azuran nobles, which they're actually crazy. Like
Mm-hmm.
so, it's okay what you're doing. But like to me, I'm reading this, I'm just like, no, he's not doing okay stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, does that make sense? Um,
Yeah, it's the central issue with this thing, which is he lives in a world, it's bad, but should he try and be the good person in the bad world, Probably, right? He should try and make the world a better place,
prob-
Should he buy a slave? Probably not.
probably.
But should he buy a slave if it'll make their life better than someone else buying it? I don't know, probably. It's
Yeah,
confusing,
yeah,
but
that's the thing, right? Yeah, and it's like, yeah, and it's very easy to sit here and be like, I guess because it's a piece of fiction and not a history, then I'm being
mm,
more critical of it. Like, it's very easy if you go say, I could say like nowadays no one knows their history and everybody hates old historical stuff or whatever, but like there is like we do venerate figures, but like particularly like 400 years ago, but the 4 years if they were racist 400 years ago, yeah, they probably were. They're probably pretty
mm,
racist, kind of thing, right? It's like, yes, we have this is someone we highly look up and respect to in society for whatever reason. Like Isaac Newton, for example.
mm,
He discovered gravity. He's so smart. And then people don't talk about how, like, he discovered gravity when he was, like, pretty young in his 20s. And then
mm,
for, like, the rest of his life, he, like, just went down, like, a weird spiritual route where he just became, like, a bit of a cultist, which
mm,
is just hilarious. He was like, yeah, that guy probably didn't have, like, the best views on women
mm,
or gay people,
yep.
or whatever. Like, and you're just like, well, let's forget that part because it doesn't really matter.
Mm,
So yeah. But anyway, like in fiction, is a bit like it's interesting because I don't know what if the author's trying to say anything or if he's like, yeah, but
mm,
it's all interesting stuff. Um,
all right.
and the characters are pretty well written, so well, I like them. So yeah, it's
So
cool.
Bacon,
And I think the perspective chapters are good.
who are your favorite characters right now? Anything come
Oh,
to
who
mind?
are my favorite? Well, Rouge has always been a favorite of mine. The thing is, he doesn't
Mm,
actually get. I don't feel like he gets expanded that more upon
mm.
in the light novel relative to other characters. Um,
It's probably true. The most we
yeah,
get of him is just more details of his backstory, I guess. But yeah.
yeah, and just make him more clear that Rujd likes kids.
Mm,
He will protect the kids,
yep.
protect the children, which is pretty based.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily like have a new favorite. I mean, I like Paul before, and then we get perspective of chapters of Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, one of the first like cool perspective chapters is like, oh, Rudy's like doing this thing, and I remember like and he has like his like, Dad, I'm 4 years old and I'm gonna out argue you,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like that, and he's like a 24-year-old, and you go into this perspective, it's like, yeah, I guess I shouldn't have jumped to the gun. turns out that lady just kind of liked me and wanted to talk to me more.
True. Yeah.
um, yeah, and all this stuff, and it kind of how it knocks down the chain of events and down the line, which I think is interesting. Yeah, I guess if I had one point, I'll probably come on to that later. But yeah, I think I like the relationships between characters more. I think someone like in the light novel, like someone like Sarah, you're like Sarah, and I'm forgetting her name. What's Sarah's
Suzanne.
basically Ghislaine figure? Suzanne, yeah. So you have like, oh, here's your Ghislaine and Eris, like clones or whatever. But then like you actually go into like why, like Sarah's like Tsundere, and it's like actually the polar opposite of what Eris. Like she would hate Eris because she just is poor and doesn't like nobility for certain reasons. And I just didn't remember that part. It probably is talked like about in like 2 lines
very briefly
later on. But it's like the fact that you get like a perspective chapter early on, it helps frame her whole entire like position. And I think it's also fun because like when you're reading, you like it's Rudy's perspective, so it's like they'll give you certain facts, but then Rudius will come to a conclusion, and you're just like, no, that's not the right conclusion, probably. Like, he's an unreliable narrator. All of them are. Which is different to the anime, because when you see it, you're like, I guess that's real. But, like, yeah, it's like a different thing, where it's hard to do an unreliable narrator in an anime context. So, yeah, which characters would I like the most? I don't think I liked anyone the most. I mean, I liked... one of my favorite moments was when Geese talks to Paul. And I was like, Geese is the GOAT. I sent that to you.
Yep.
Geese is the GOAT. That was pretty fun. I was like, when is he going to tell Rudius? And I thought Rudius found out that he was part of Paul's party in Millis in the anime. Does he in the light novel as well? I don't think he does, though.
Oh, boy. Let me think. I don't remember.
So, from what I know, and people, maybe I missed it, but I'm almost certain that that's not the case, right? Like Rudy still doesn't know that Geese is linked to Paul.
I think he would have found out, in the light novel after, this is like all stuff that's cut from the anime, but when they go to a restaurant and they're like talking with Paul and Eris and Norn and all them, I think maybe he finds out then. He talks about like Geese.
No, I don't think he does. I don't think so. I don't think so. But I swear in the anime he finds out like, oh, this guy was related to Paul. With Paul's crew, or something like that. Yeah. There's also like stuff that is way easier to digest. Like basically, yeah. I mean, I think what is highlighted to me more is like the interesting relationships and dynamics between characters more so than the actual characters themselves. Like I think I probably like Rudius more, but I already quite liked Rudius as a character. Probably like Eris more. I think in the anime it's less. Do they even give like her perspective on why she left him? I can't remember that. I thought, that's really
very,
interesting.
very brief. Like she's with Ghislaine and going like, "I love you" or something. She like yells it out into the distance, and his hands were smaller than mine. And we hear like a very few things. We don't get a whole perspective though, like we do in the
yeah. I mean, and then like Lydia's a great example where you're just like,
Lilia is like a non-character.
Okay, I actually.
I mean, we get like very little of it. Yeah, we get a lot of stuff and.
You also get a Zenith chapter. I was like, oh, okay, so she's
really
like a noble. I completely forgot it.
Yep, we meet her sister as well. Oh my god.
Yeah. Is the sister not in the anime either?
Yep.
I mean, she is.
Well, we see her once in the OVA.
In the OVA.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I was like, that's crazy. I was like, that was a pog moment. I was like, yeah. You tell him, what was her name again? Not Ginger. Therese. I'm getting her confused. What, sorry, was it?
Therese, I think.
Therese.
I don't know how you pronounce it, something like that. Therese Latreo.
Yeah. Ginger was cool. I like Ginger. Shinobu turned up and I was like, oh yeah, boy. God, Cliff turned up and I haven't actually watched, the only episode of the anime I didn't watch was the Goblin Slayer one. So I was like, oh, Cliff? Yes, it's Cliff. I know that guy.
Yep.
Luke was cool.
Oh yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, what do you think of like Ariel, Luke? Like, I feel like you were saying that you didn't get much of them. What do you think of them? Do you have any more of them now? Do you still feel like we haven't learned much about them yet?
I kind of get her. I don't feel like I've learned a ton about her that I didn't in it. Like so the last chapter was interesting. It's like how she became president, and she like took down racism. The two beast, the two beast folk people. Like when they were just like being mean to her. Basically, Fitz just 1v2, 1v20 all of them.
No, but she did. Isn't? Am I remembering correctly? She like told them that they were like animals or something, and then she like whispered
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's like Jesus.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy. Political
Yeah,
movement.
I just remember I just remember you in the anime discussion being like, yeah, I really didn't like Ariel when I read the light
I
novel.
did not.
I was like, what's so bad about her? I was trying to figure it out. It's like, yeah,
Well, I guess
there
it
was
would be her like
aura presence
no, because
vibe.
she always feels like she's in control. And she
Yeah,
feels like she can kind of maneuver people however she wants. It's a
yeah.
very kind of, she feels like a queen, I guess, but like non-deserved. Like she hasn't done anything to deserve being a queen, I guess, but she kind of acts like
She's very
she should be in
I would
control.
say her charisma levels are unbelievable. But anyway, that's okay. I did like the story of her like getting out the carriage and then the captain being like, you know, I just love this lady so much because she was at my graduation and she made me actually be proud of my job. So then I'll let you through. But all my guys behind me probably think I'm an idiot and probably will turn against me. And then I turn against them and they actually all like Ariel too. And now we get a bond over her actually liking this job. And now I like my job.
Yep.
That was in the perspective chapter where the guy was. That was really confusing because I missed the part where I changed perspective. So I thought it was the guy collecting all the data that was doing this for a second. I was like, no, that's not it. No. Bruno's the merchant.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
Bruno's the merchant that he talked to later, and then Bruno, that same merchant, was the one that Rudius was in the carriage of at the start of season 7, and that's why I said Bruno, yeah. And actually, that's probably one of the coolest chapters. Was that first chapter of volume 7 because it was like prologue outside of Rudius' perspective, and you just get to like get Bruno's perspective on everybody in the carriage, and it's like this kid is depressed, right? But it's just funny to see like.
Do not know
Like Rudy's from the outside, like what in someone's head what they think Rudius is looking like. It's like a more reliable narration of Rudius, if that makes sense. And you can kind of guess what's going on with him, but yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm just thinking about the point of view chapters. I know there's one we can go through them. I like listed a few of them when I was doing my recaps, but one I remember liking quite a lot. It was in volume 1. I don't exactly remember when it happens, but it's when Paul is like deciding to separate Sylphie and Rudy. So I guess it would be like toward the end of it. And you kind of see that he is very genuine in his belief that he kind of wants Sylphie to live a life independent of Rudy. Like he realizes that she's going to become very dependent on him. And he separates them because of that. I kind of like that to see that Paul isn't necessarily a bad person in that he does think about these, or a bad parent, sorry. He is like thinking about these things and trying to think like what's best for Sylphie and what's best for Rudy. And I kind of like that. Basically, Paul's point of views are really interesting here. There's just so much more.
Yeah, no, they always are.
Yeah.
And he probably has the most point of view chapters so far, right? He's probably had like 5.
Yeah, potentially. I know one of them. If you're thinking about, say, the anime, I think one of the only point of view chapters that were actually adapted was the Paul and Norn like backstory after the teleportation incident. And the way it was adapted was like they played it during the opening, like a silent, no dialogue. They're just like showing the montage, and here we get like full details of him like stealing a horse from the Adventurers Guild, and it's cute stuff.
I'll take the low rank and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think this is the thing, right? It's like it's like all these people have done bad things, but they are like very much people, and he's like Paul's very earnest, and he's very like his perspective is just like being like Geese trying to talk to him and be like, hey, he's still 11-year-old kid, and Paul being like, yeah, but Rudius can do everything. Right? He was arguing me and won arguments when he was 4, right? Like that's what Paul's baggage is basically, right? And just like
inadequacy.
Like, people can make mistakes, inadequacy, and it's almost. Because they don't realize that Rudius is like 45. Like interestingly, Rudius the only like when he's referred to his age as being like basically 45. So he personally counts it. I know, as I said before, Rudius is unreliable narrator, but he personally counts the years on top of like his 33 in the real world. Which I thought was interesting. Which I'm like Mushoku Tensei fans trying to grandstand, huh? You think he's not moved, huh? He would say, oh, yeah. I would say probably your argument for that is okay or whatever for him to be like this is probably weaker. Like, because you said basically he's a shut-in with no social interaction for like from since he was 16, right? But and it still makes sense. But I think the story doesn't really try and make that clear as an argument. I wouldn't say that. Like, I feel like that's like a more technical argument. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
It
I'd
kind
have
of
to. So if I'm remembering, you're saying that my argument and probably a lot of people's argument is that Rudy is currently a mentally stunted, like for all sake and purpose or all intents and purposes, we're meant to assume is like a 14 or 15-year-old in his mind, right? He hasn't
yeah,
developed, he hasn't got the life experience or whatever. But from Rudius's perspective, he still sees himself as that like 45-year-old man, and like he'll still like
yeah,
recount his old experiences, and like he still is kind of he is actually in his perspective older, and he feels like he's like kind of lived life a bit. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think more about it.
yeah. I mean, I'd also say on top of that, he uses knowledge, and I know even though he's not had outside experience on the internet from when he's after 16 years old, right? Like multiple
Yeah,
times. Um, and so like I think it's fair to say, yeah, he should know better. And he like
yeah,
I think that's more fine. I think that's fine, like in terms of like it's okay for your main character to be morally grey. And I think
mm,
Rudius, in other ways, has shown more character where Rudius does not like to kill. Right? I don't. Has he even killed anybody yet? That's not a monster. I don't think he has. Um,
well, he's
has
gotten
he?
people
Hang on.
killed.
He's definitely. Yeah, he has gotten people killed.
I don't remember if he's actually killed someone. I do remember at some point he does. Um, I don't remember. I actually don't remember.
Yeah,
Surely he has
like
killed
he's.
someone. Come on. He was gonna kill Nokapra, but he didn't.
Yeah,
He let Rujod kill all the people. He let that one chicken guy die accidentally. I don't know.
yeah. But I don't think he's intentional. Anyway, but
Not
like there
directly.
are
No.
certain things where like yeah, Rudius is more moral, but I wouldn't say he's like he's not basically he's not like a moral paragon. But then again, like you think about like someone like Berserk, right?
Mm.
Gus isn't a good person either. So like and like Gus is given probably a way more pass. So anyway, that's an interesting thing. But anyway,
Well, the
anyway,
thing
I
is,
guess
like,
that's
it is kind of interesting, right? There's some aspects of characters that you should aspire to be, and other aspects that you shouldn't. Like when you think of Guts, the aspect that you should try to be like is like, oh, he's a
Chan.
struggler, you know. He keeps trying. He like even if everything is
Yeah.
lost, he like keeps living his life. Whatever. That's like an admirable aspect of Guts, and not a lot of his other aspects, you know. An
Yeah.
element of I think that Rudius is like what there's a lot of elements obviously not to aspire to. I think an element of Rudius's character to aspire to, at least this part of the story, would probably be his either what would you even say? The curiosity is kind of interesting. The fact that he's
Hmm.
always trying to understand how things work and everything, I think that's really cool. Like even especially when he's first trying to learn magic, there's a lot of like just him experimenting and theorizing, like why is it that when I summon like a big water boy, it requires less magic than like a little one, and like what is causing this, and how can I make the clouds blah blah blah. These are all like interesting elements. But
Yeah.
maybe also his kind of empathy or open mindedness to the struggles of unpleasant people. Because he kind of relates to he's seen himself right in his previous life and how bad he was. So when he
Yeah.
sees bad people, he kind
Um.
of empathizes with them. So maybe his empathy is kind of like
Oh,
admirable, I guess.
what was Zenoba's brother called? That guy
Pax.
was Pax was like irredeemably evil,
Yeah, there's probably
but
not an
it's
element of
never
him where
like
I'm like,
he.
oh yeah, I want to be like
But,
him
but
in that regard.
but it's like
He's like,
the
I want
light
to
novel
rape
doesn't really.
Roxy or something.
Yeah. The light novel was never like. And Rudy just thought this was bad, and he shouldn't do this. He was morally
Yeah.
abhorrent. Like sometimes it does do that and say Paul is human garbage or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Like Paul is trash.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. But here you're just like, but then it said Rudy just goes and like, I see, he's like that guy I used to be,
Mm.
and so on, like, right? And he like, it makes this like, as you said, like this effort to almost not humanize Pax, but kind of give reason to why Rudy's not like flipping out about this as much, and he's just like, yeah. And I think, yeah, and I wouldn't say it's something to aspire to because of where it comes from, but Rudy's humility as well is actually pretty and I think it's like almost realistic humility. Like we got
Mm.
to the point basically in volume 7 he takes down like a red wyvern basically by himself, and I'm just like, dude, that's some serious main protagonist I'm OP kind of vibe. But it doesn't feel bad necessarily, maybe like because it doesn't feel like, oh, it's necessarily power fantasy, because like Rudy's just like so self-deprecating and he's got
Yeah,
so many
sure.
other issues that is so clearly like he's very flawed, right? And it's like these flaws almost make him, because you're in Rudius's head. I think this is maybe one of the best parts. Like in like the greatest thing about the Eris chapter is like from Eris chapter, Rudius is actually one of the most phenomenal, greatest people to ever walk this earth. Like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my word, he is crazy. amazing, right?
Yeah.
And but like because you're on Rudy's perspective, you're like, no, he's got all these unfair advantages. You know, he's got all 33 of real world experience before this world, so he looks a lot smarter, sounds a lot smarter than he actually is, right? He's been, and because he's gotten it early, right, he's able to be in silent cast, right? And I think that's partly it's not like a natural talent; it's because he is young when he does it. I think is that the idea? Because Sophie can also do it, right? Or is that actually a thing that you can't just do when you're young? It's definitely his mana pool is massive because he's young and he's trained it so much, right?
I guess we'll have to see. I don't know. These are interesting questions,
Ooh, oh, okay, all right. Don't do this, man. You should have just said yes, 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 and I wouldn't have ever thought about it. And then it gets flipped on his head, and I would be like, "Oh my word, crazy!" Anyway, that's in my perspective at the moment. Basically, yeah, like, I mean, yeah, and it's like, oh, he think like one thing. Rudius does do. He does like think through every option, very calculated, right? And you get, um, and um, and stuff like that. So he feels like he's thinking about lots of stuff. He's very, very, he's very, very thoughtful, and it's very, very clear that like even his old self was very, very intelligent. Like IQ wise, it'd probably be quite high. Like thinking through a lot of these things, right? But it's just like how it's then reflected in Rudius, where he's just like, I don't deserve any of this, and like Rudius doesn't. There's some points where I'm like, that's a bit ridiculous, but when like Rudius is like, oh, Rudius is the only reason why we got through all that. Like I'm nothing. Like I'm just like, that's not true. But yeah, there's like certain things that it's just interesting to see their perspective, and basically, I just thought it's interesting where like most of the main characters don't think they're good enough, and that's why their relationships fall apart because they don't necessarily like help talk to each other about like their perspectives. So I mean that's like what Eris left him, right? It's like I need to get stronger so I can stand side by side with Rudius, right? And then Rudius is just like, well, she left me because I'm not good enough. And I was like, no, that's precisely the opposite reason why she left you.
Yeah.
But she didn't tell you because she's Eris, and that's like her character, right? You know. And then, dude, yeah, the end of Volume 6 was sad, man. I was like, Rudy, no. He's like, I'm leaving now. I'm like, no, my man. My boy.
But he's forever changed by their journey, I'm sure.
Yes. But yeah, he just kind of ups and leaves. I'm like, that's crazy. Yep. And then you had like the moment when Ghislaine and Alphonse like seem like they're not really like each other, and it's what to do with Eris. That was interesting. But yeah, and then you have this whole thing with Sarah. Dude, that was still hard to listen to or read. I can't remember which one I was doing. I was just like, there. I was like, oh no, it's coming up, isn't it? Oh, she's right behind you.
Yep.
Oh, but then it almost resolves way faster because like both of them realize it. Actually, Sarah realizes it super fast because it's like a Sarah perspective afterwards, and then our goat Timothy comes in and is like, actually, he's probably thinking like this, and she's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then she goes back and Rudius is already gone.
That's
what as well.
What a tragedy that was removed from the anime. I have to say, the Sarah point of view at the end, where if just the fact that if they both came and talked to each other, it would have worked out perfectly, and maybe they actually would have been happy. But no, we never get that tragedy in the anime because you don't actually get her perspective at all. You don't see that after like she goes off screen. She has that conversation with everyone, and they kind of talk about stuff, and I don't know.
Yeah, there's stuff like that, and I think it's like it all makes sense, and it doesn't feel melodramatic because it's like, of course, Rudius feels like this because he feels like he's like incompetent and no one likes him, and even like the Roxy, like okay, the fact I don't have to see him pick up these like panties and be like pray to it. It's like no, I just like that everybody thinks he's a pious man and he prays to his relic, and that's what is referred to as the holy relic of Roxy. I'm just like that. Sounds way more reasonable. Like I don't know why, but it was way better in my head than him just
when you don't have to see it.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, this. I mean, he even explains it to Aisha, where he's like, sometimes you want to, keep a little bit of someone you respect and like. I completely forgot that Aisha actually figured out who he was, which I thought was funny.
Just pretty smart.
That's pretty smart. That's also a bit unbelievable that a 5-year-old kid would be that smart, but hey ho. Thinking now, maybe she's also teleported in from the other world, but then really just confirms
that would be crazy.
But then never know.
Maybe she's a natural
what else?
prodigy.
Yeah, maybe she's a natural prodigy. I mean, that's what Paul says. Like Paul says, yeah, she's not. She's pretty smart, but she's not as odd as Rudius. And then also the whole like Lilia relationship with Rudius is interesting. Where like Lydia's more character than Zenith. Zenith at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah. I
manga, which I
mean,
think
we
is
only get
interesting.
one
Like, Venus
volume with
gets one
Zenith,
chapter.
and yeah, she gets one chapter at the end, which is a cute chapter. Um, it was
I'm trying to
the.
remember exactly like the small details. So she
I think
gives
it
her
was
backstory and
like,
why she's there.
yeah, she gives the backstory. She's also watching Rudy while Rudy is looking at the two kids. I remember that. And speaking out
Oh
about
yeah.
like him as a big brother and everything. And yeah, I don't remember the details that much. It's been many years, but I remember liking it a lot.
Mm.
But yeah, that's it. Believe it or not, that's all you get of Zenith until volume
Yeah, she's
12, I
looking at
guess. Yeah.
and like oh yeah, like Rudy's really wants to be like a big brother or something, right? A
Mm-hmm.
good big brother. Yeah, that was cool.
Yep.
That was cool. Um,
All right. Um, okay, I got a few things. Firstly, on the unreliable narrator thing you were talking about, you said that Rudy is kind of an unreliable narrator. One other thing that's kind of interesting, which I'm not sure if you picked up on yet, if we've had enough details yet, but sometimes there can be
mhm.
unreliable history. There's a lot of. Firstly, we get like this big lore dump chapter in volume 2, I think it is, when he's with Eris. He's like going to the library, and we get like a history of the world, and he talks like it goes through like the past like 300,000 years, and we get details there. Um, and then I think throughout their travels on the demon continent, he like gets a few like oral kind of like they're talking to other people and getting oral traditions and stuff. And sometimes these
I didn't
histories
pick
don't
up on
line
that
up.
as
And
much.
yeah, well, keep it in mind, I guess, going forward if you ever hear any more history stuff. Like there'll be a lot of moments.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's not like this is a light novel. It's not nothing crazy, but sometimes Rudy will be like, "Oh, this sounds familiar. I feel like I've heard this story before." And then you like go back
he
and be
does that
like,
a
"Oh, it's like a
lot.
slightly
Yeah,
different story to like what you actually heard." And I kind of like that element to piece together stuff like this. Um,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, keep it in mind, I
Yeah,
guess.
there's a lot of things where what is it? He is no like yeah, like he'll be like, oh, I've seen this face before. I'm like, dude, you've clearly met this person before. I'm trying to think, well, who was it recently? Anyway, yeah, like, oh, I recognize this. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm on that. But then, yeah, I didn't catch the history thing because it's just so much history at once, and I
Oh
didn't note it
yes.
down. That I didn't really like. It's like 10,000 years. I'm like, these are a bit cookie cutter. But
Mm,
then, yeah, like Laplace, that was interesting. Like how he put the
true.
curse on the green hair, of
Hmm.
the because he had green hair, which, yeah, anyway, all this
I feel
stuff.
like
Like,
we also get a bunch of references to Perugius throughout this, which I feel like he's not really mentioned that much
yes.
in the anime,
Oh,
but yeah.
the crazy thing is that when on the first turning point, it's like we
Mm,
get Perugius's perspective,
you
we
do.
get Ghislaine's Swordmaster's perspective,
Yes, completely not in the anime. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
um, and then we also, and then who
We
else do we
get
get? We
Dragon God
get
Orsted. Oh my goodness, killing
yes,
all
yes,
these
that was in the
dragons.
anime. Yeah,
Yep.
that's crazy. That's cool. Um,
A bunch of
yeah,
perspectives. I like how it's the way that from what I remember, they portray it. What are they? What am I trying to say here? The commonality in all these perspectives is that they're all looking toward the same point in the sky, and it's like framed as like everyone in the world is like seeing that there's this sky that has changed
yeah,
color, and they're all like
Roxy's
looking
perspective
there.
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Roxy's looking, and he's like, "Oh, I wonder if Rudy's is okay." And yeah, it is also kind of interesting because at least from what I remember when I was reading it, it kind of frames it like, is this Rudy's doing? Like, has Rudy actually done something here to trigger this teleportation incident? Um,
oh, I
which
see.
I guess,
I didn't think that at all because
mm,
I kind of know it wasn't
well,
him,
yeah,
but
sure,
I think it wasn't him. Maybe it was him. but
yeah, I guess we'll
but
see.
yeah. And then the man god chapters I think are way more detailed as well
Yeah, the
for a
man,
reason.
yeah, true, very interesting. Um, what do you think of the man god?
Yeah.
How's he?
Well, I think this is one thing I'm like vaguely spoiled on, but then
Yeah,
here's like made way more that that spoiler is probably correct.
interesting.
But then I also feel like in the anime should have been pretty cool. Basically, that was like one thing I was like always looking forward to. Just like when's the man god gonna turn up again? That's always
Mm,
hype, and he's pretty hype. It's pretty interesting. And I think the fact that yeah, he's clearly like where he slots into this world, I think is
mm,
very interesting. And then the fact that like yeah, I forgot a lot about Orsted and Man God's um, relationship, but it's clear that the Man God hates Orsted and Orsted hates him. So the
mm,
Man God is really unreliable when it comes to Orsted.
mm.
Um,
True.
but yeah, but that's because like yeah, the Orsted has like four curses on him, which I don't even say in the anime. The four
Mm,
curses are that everybody hates him, um,
and fears him.
and fears him. Is that two different curses or that's the same?
I
That's the
don't
same
know
one.
actually.
The other one is that the Man God can't see him,
Mm-hmm.
can't see his future or present, but can see his past. No man, now I've forgotten the other two.
I'm
But
sure
yeah,
one day we'll learn about this again. I'm sure. Um,
Oh,
Unless we never see Orsted again, that'd be pretty crazy though.
yeah, that'd be
Um,
crazy. That'd be crazy. And that
yeah.
he's actually confirmed to be the strongest person in the world,
Hmm.
even stronger. I'd say one of my favorite chapters was the Nanahoshi Dragon one. And it's like you kind of see this guy, and it's like his restaurant's ruined, and then it's like turns out he's actually like the death god.
Mm.
And I don't really know what it means by death god. Does it just mean they're just really strong, or like they're actually like god? He's not like Hades and
Yeah.
controls
So,
death, right?
well, I guess firstly we don't know is what I want to say first, but secondly,
Okay.
I should say that there's some terminology which is like pretty important when it comes to the sword and magic. I guess magic we know
Hmm.
like. For instance, Roxy eventually becomes a water king, magician or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
water is obviously the element, and
You
king
got
is like the level of magic or
Emperor.
whatever.
You've
Yeah,
got
yeah. Can you list
Emperor.
them all, Bacon? Whatever. Go ahead,
Uh,
or, from beginner to whatever.
okay, so there's beginner, intermediate, advanced, saint, king.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I don't know where Emperor comes after that. I don't know if that's the most important or there's another one in between that and like King's third highest. And then you got something and
Mm.
then Emperor.
Yeah, king, no, king, emperor, and then god or divine or whatever. I think it varies between
Oh,
the
oh,
two
so it is
versions.
God. Okay,
Yeah,
so okay, okay.
god is the best.
But
It
then
makes
it's
sense.
but yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. I didn't realize that you could. Oh, okay. So these aren't actual like gods of these things. They're just like very skilled.
Yeah, so god is like a level of achievement, I guess. Like even potentially being the best in your like particular element, maybe. Like it's a bit of a nebulous
Yeah,
term. It's like if you're like really
yeah.
good,
All of
then
them
like
are.
god, I guess. Yeah.
All of them
Um,
are. It's just very categorization. But it's
yeah.
just
Now
interesting how much like the power level goes up on each one, basically, right?
that
So
is very true. Yeah. Um, yeah, they do talk about that. How it's like one. I don't even remember what they said, but a god is basically a big step up from emperor, which is a big step up from king, and so on and so forth.
yeah, it's like
Um,
logarithmic almost.
Yeah. Um, what was I going to say? Something about. Um, oh yeah. So what I was going to say is that when it comes to the swords stuff in particular, then there's like actual titles for each of the disciplines. So there's like the sword god style, which doesnit's mean you're a god.
Hmm.
It's just like a particular style, which derives from the current sword god, like Galfarian, Ghislaine's like master. So it's like the sword god is basically the head of the sword god style. Then you have like a water god who is like the head of the water god style, and then you got like the north god who's like the north god, head of the north god style, and so that's like a bit confusing but kind of cool. And I think they say that like Paul is like an advanced in all three or something, and is like really good, and oh my gosh, and we love it.
Mm.
But yeah, so another thing I wanted to talk about is I don't want to talk too much about it, but a little bit, and it kind of ties into the man god stuff. And when Rudy is talking to him, it's Rudius's perspective of himself. In the anime, it's it's such a distinct kind of Rudius has two voices. He has his old voice, the old man voice, and he has his in character actual like young Rudius voice.
Yeah.
And for the most part, we see him as his Rudius voice, but when we're actually hearing inside his head, we hear the old man voice or whatever. And there's a big distinction there. And very clearly, when Rudius is thinking, we hear his old man voice showing that okay, he still sees himself as that old man. That's like the true him. And whenever he's in the void world or whatever they call it, in the white world with the man god, we see that he sees himself in his old body. Or maybe that's I guess the man god says like you see yourself how you see yourself or whatever. Whereas in the actual light novel, it's there is no distinction here. Whenever we're hearing Rudius, we're just hearing his perspective. And we have to be the ones to decide at what point do we actually start seeing him as like this new character, and when do we at what point do we basically transition to just see him as the new character. That's kind of an interesting element, I guess, to the light
Yeah.
novel.
And I think what was interesting was actually how it's very, I think, lots of us will be like, oh, our mind's different from our body. But in this situation, it's very, very clear that his whole mentality, like his biology impacts his mentality in a way. Like it talks about like when he goes back to like all these feelings of doing nothing, like he becomes more lethargic feeling, like like there was definitely a different like he was talking about how he like could never run like go up in the morning and exercise every single morning around this like town for Hercules and Hulk
Yeah,
and
true.
yeah yeah and stuff like that but like so it's clearly like he's got a different mentality and like he's got different instincts and intuitions and it's kind of like how they say your guts linked to your brain like and stuff like that like because of the bacteria and it's like not just your brain controlling everything but your body influences your brain and how you feel and I'm almost viewing it like that so it's like because he's in his old body like all this baggage comes with that old body as well So yeah, there was a very big point made clear that he like feels like he's devolved, and like lots of his like good intuitions that he's built up in this new world. Like it's very clear where like these bodies have diverged in a way, or like these mentalities have diverged, and he's like gone back to an old thing. Which you can it's interesting because like the first chapter is kind of shown that like he's like reflecting on his life, and basically because he's had such a massive shake up, like such a like a harrowing experience, that now he's like, oh yeah, I should probably try and be better. And then he gets hit and he gets this extra chance at life, and it feels like his mentality is like, okay, I'll try better now, and that's like the initial step, right? But then that's kind of put him on like it's like he's like just changed the angle of his trajectory like by 5 degrees, but by this point he's like way further than his starting point, like his current point in his old self, if that makes sense, like way on a way different track. So yeah, there's an interesting thing. I haven't been thinking a lot. Like I'm not sure if I read his. I think I kind of see almost his old mentality, his current mentality as one is the same in the light novel. Yeah, I didn't really catch on to that.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty similar at this point. Okay, let's see. I guess before we just like go over stuff from like, oh yeah, I remember this scene. What else is there? Okay. Also, is there anything you particularly didn't like? Any like parts or any element to the light novel? Anything where you're like, oh, you know what, that wasn't for me.
I prefer that in the anime. I mean, I think some of the explanation for some of the fight scenes isn't as intricate as the anime. Like stuff like the Orchid fight that is very similar, and I love how they can convert to some small like a paragraph of information of like there was like there's this paragraph where it's like Rudy could keep up with Orsted. It wasn't a matter of power difference, but it's just Orsted just got all these small like hits.
Yeah, like after
it's just a massive
like,
experience.
Progress.
And then I watched the anime. I'm just like, oh, dude, that's like 3 seconds.
It is,
like, and it just shows it's so fast. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. I think it's like stuff like it's something that I didn't realize until season 2. Or you mentioned, I was like, oh yeah, he loves his stone cannon, right? Like I don't even know his other spells. Like he just loves his stone cannon.
I think we got like a whole chapter where he's like, not chapter, but he's explaining like, oh, if I make him a hollow point or if I make him sharper, what impact does that have? It's like
this is when they first get. Yeah, when he first gets in, he's like, oh, how can I like do it? But yeah, like I think there's is there anything I do? One thing I would say is like when I get home and I'm not like just reading it doesn't feel like enough in some ways, but I don't think there's like a particular instance where I'm like, oh dude, the anime did that so much better. I don't think there's been something like that. It's just like anime's done what anime's good at, if that makes sense, which is like good music, good environments, nice colors.
I guess for me,
I would say there's maybe some points where I'm like, oh, this pacing is a bit slow and I don't care about it as much. Like when you get a massive lore dump, I'm just like, dude, I'm trying to retain this information.
I love the lore dump.
I'm trying to retain. Dude, I'm trying to understand. Like, okay, I get it way better that like humans had like different wars over the time, and I mean, and stuff like that. Like, and I think the discrimination against demons is like a lot more obvious and stuff. Like Rigid's difficulty. There's just a lot of things that in the anime it's just like an offhand comment, basically. But it's easier when you're like reading it or listening to it. Like it feels like a lot more emphasis put on it, and it kind of sticks with you more. But yeah.
Yep. Okay. I guess for me, when I think there's some elements that I think are done more emotionally well in the anime, and then there's some that I think are done more emotionally well in the light novel. Like the go-to example for me for the light novel is I think all of Volume 7. I think the emotions are way better captured in the light novel. I was much sadder reading the light novel than I was watching the 4 episodes in the anime. However, like I said before, the Paul point of view chapter with Norn, I really like the light novel chapter because we get all the details. But I think the way they conveyed it in the anime, I think was much better. Just tying it into like that opening, having the music, seeing like the expressions on their faces and stuff. Like I think that gets to me way more emotionally. So I think there's basically they have different divergent emotional high points. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's probably more that I don't remember the anime quite as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Particularly early on. We got into the stuff which I'm a bit more fresh on. So I may have stronger opinions. But yeah, no, it's been good. What else? One more thing I would say. I would say probably the worst part of the light novel. I'd say probably the prose,
Okay.
like how it's written. And I don't know if it's coming from, because Japanese, like translation from Japanese, and Japan has a certain style of light novels, a certain style. Like I'm so uneducated on this, but I would say like the actual writing quality is pretty, very basic. I wouldn't say it's
Yeah.
bad. It gets what it needs to across, but the dialogue is pretty. There's spurts of good dialogue, but like yeah, like it doesn't always it likes to rehash certain details. It's very, I find it always a bit jarring, and it makes sense. But at the beginning of every light novel, it like gives you a little bit of a rundown of stuff you already know, but just in case other people don't know what's going on. Like this is Rudy's Grey Rat, and this is yeah, whatever. Like
Yeah. Well, I
so,
think it's very
like
approachable, but I guess it's meant to be a light novel for like younger audience, I guess.
I guess when it says light novel, is it like light reading? What's the
I think it
difference
just
between a
means that
light
it's
novel and a real
targeted for
novel?
like teens or something. I think I don't really know, but that's my general
Oh,
understanding.
yeah, maybe like the reading age is like different. Um,
Mm,
Maybe that's it. But even like Percy Jackson, like when I think of Percy Jackson,
mm,
I feel like there's a lot more character in the dialogues, a lot more back and
probably.
forth between characters. Like I feel like conversations don't really go on along further than like five comments back and forth in a way, which isn't true. And maybe it's because I've also listened to the audiobook that's just like AI read or
Mm.
text to speech read. Sorry, I
You're
don't really
offending
know
the
if I
AI for
really
something.
call it.
Okay.
No, I don't even know if it feels weird calling it AI when it's existed for so long. It's just text to speech,
Mm.
um, or whatever. But yeah, yeah. Sorry, the whole AI conversation is a bit weird. Where it's like, yeah, is
Yep.
it even? It's not even that intelligent. I'll be honest. It's just a
Mm.
language model that's trained
Oh
on
my
a
god.
voice. Sorry,
Jesus. Okay.
sorry. I'm triggering Ari here.
Yep. All right.
Um,
Well, so you
but
loved
anyway, yeah,
everything.
like
Great. We love it.
yeah, I love it
Except for the
when they're
pros.
when the AI goes like he'll say the same thing exactly the same, and it happens so often, and it's the word sure. Like Rita says that so much in Volume 7, and the AI
But it
runner like
sounds the
always
same.
reads in the most enthusiastic voice. Like it like stops and he goes sure, and I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
okay, I don't think he's that.
We love it.
You know, I don't think he's that
See,
excited.
we
But
can also thank the AI voices for my pronunciation. I guess yours now as well of EliteAri, because that's just how I say it. Because that's just how
yeah,
the AI read it for me, but it's not meant to be pronounced that way. And Ghislaine as well, but
it's
Ghislaine is her
Ghislaine.
name. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it. Oh, I read it as Ghislaine just because I know that's the natural name.
Yep.
Because the only other Ghislaine is related to an actual paedophile.
True.
Oh well.
Yep.
Um, what is? There was one name which was weird. As
Go
you
for it.
Alina how's it meant to? Alina Lees? Is that
Alina Lees, yeah. Now I'm also the only reason I
Alina?
say that every time is that like one day they'll make a pun out of it, and I'm like, oh, the pun doesn't work unless you got the other pronunciation. But it doesn't matter. Okay.
Um, there was one where I was like, oh, I guess you could read it that way. Oh, Laplace. I see it as
Oh
Laplace,
no,
but
Laplace is way
Laplace.
cooler.
Laplace is way cooler.
Yep.
Agreed. Agreed. Laplace. That sounds like a candy. Like, oh, here's my Laplace. Oh, it's
Mm.
strawberry flavored Laplace. No, no, no. This is blueberry. I like this one.
Yep.
Get out of here.
Um,
Um,
Zenoba versus Zenoba and all that. That's like it's open to interpretation. There's a few names like this throughout.
that's okay. That's okay.
Mm.
There's different
What did they? I don't
so,
know. Do you remember? Did they call the man god the man god, or did they have some other name for him?
no, he's called the man god.
And we love it. What about the teleportation incident, mana disaster, the great calamity, the displacement incident? What did they use? Was it consistent? I know when I was reading, it kept
It,
changing throughout, but
it was called the Great Display. What was the words? I think it was the Great Displacement
okay,
or
cool.
disaster, but it wasn't mana. It wasn't mana disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Probably the
I never
mass
got confused by
displacement.
it.
That's probably what they.
The mass displacement, yeah.
Yeah,
A
crazy.
victim of the mass displacement, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
All right, well,
yeah. So I
um,
reckon. Any predictions? I feel like the technique god. I didn't really know about him before. Now he's turned up. I've heard his name a couple times.
mm-hmm.
I feel like that's something that the man god. If the man god was going to be someone, he'd probably be the technique god. What is being the god of man even mean? But everybody calls him the man god. That's the thing. Okay, he like also calls him the man god. So what does the man god mean? I guess that means he's the god of men, and is humans like in this world different to men from the other
Like, what is a
world.
dragon god, for instance? Like, what would that even mean?
Someone really, really good. Well, yeah, I guess he kills a lot of dragons. That's kind of what is implied.
Mm-hmm.
He's in control of them, right?
What is
He's
a
really,
what is a
really good with
demon
them.
god? Demon god
I don't even know what a
Laplace.
death god is.
What
Well,
is a
what
death
is the
god?
death god?
What is a fighting
I didn't
god?
get that.
Like, hmm.
No, fighting, yeah, yeah. I'm not even sure.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, yeah. Anyway, I feel like the biggest mystery is figuring out who this bloody man god is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, yeah, that's like a cool part, and then I can't wait till I get to like past them. Like at the moment, I think I'm actually happy that the anime is has Bugatti turns up. I didn't even realize he was married to Kisharika. Actually, I think I did know that, but I completely forgot about
Oh, they're
that.
not married, just fiance. But
No,
yeah.
they're engaged. Sorry, engaged. My bad. And Badagadi and Align Lies had like an evening together. That was
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Yep.
That's like next level. I'm just like Align Lies. You are also Align Lies is a meeting. I do not remember it being that
What,
like
meeting Rudy?
that. Yeah, for the first time she like turns up
Mm-hmm.
and then she's like all over him. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, girl, you just mentioned last time I saw you. You mentioned you didn't want to be the daughter of Paul, but
Mm-hmm.
she was on it. Um,
Classic Illinois.
what was it? What was it?
What other theories are there? Let me
Yeah,
think.
no, there was loads. Yeah, well, it was just cool. Like, yeah, these like, oh, I forgot about the. Did they have it in the anime where they like, oh, we know where Zenith is? Like Roxy asking,
Yeah, right at the end.
Kusharika
She like
for.
uses a demon
Yeah,
eye and like looks for it.
yeah, I think I remembered that part. I was like, okay, I forgot about
Mm.
that part. But then Badagadi was there, PogChamp, and then they went on their different ways. And Talahand and Analyze was like, who's gonna meet Paul? And then like Talahand was like, I guess it's gotta be me.
Mm-hmm.
And then Roxy also went, and then Lionelize traveled on using the sea gods because Badagadi's friends with another demon god who's good pals with the sea folk, and then they get to go all the way to the Northern Territories without having to go through Melis.
Yep.
Or the, yeah, I've had to pull up the map a couple times. I think the
That's
map's quite
great.
interesting, actually.
I do like the map. Have you heard the story of the? I don't know if they've said it. Surely they've said it now. The Golden Knight Aldebaran or anything like that. I don't know if that's how they pronounce
I
it. But
don't remember. I don't
okay,
remember it.
interesting. All right. I think that either they haven't said it but yet, but I think they have. It's like there's this like folk tale about how I think he like there was something happened and it caused the big thing in the middle of the map to like to not explode, or like there was like there's an ocean and he created the holy like pathway to Millis or something. I don't know. It's like some weird
That guy. Yeah.
stuff going on.
I remember that guy. Like he had a one sword swipe.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. I feel like this, yeah, looking at this map, whenever I see it, I'm like, there must be something in the middle of that ocean. They're gonna go. It's gonna be like that's where the final boss takes place. It's like,
Maybe.
new. And then the Heaven continent. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Northern Territories. Where are the Northern Territories? Are they just the north
Top
part?
left, I think. That's
Top
where
left.
Rudy would be in Volume 7, like above the mountain
Yeah,
range. On
yeah. The
top left.
Renoa Kingdom, the Basharet Kingdom, Nearest Kingdom, and then you get the Holy Land of the Sword. That'd be kind of cool.
That's probably where
Red
the
Dragon
sword would
Upper
be.
Jaw. Yes, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eris mentioned she was going somewhere as well.
There's the Strife Zone, which is where we get the chapter
Of
the
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine, yeah. And they like have a religion around her or something. It was great.
Yeah.
Bunch
Yeah,
of
that
stuff.
was pretty cool. Yeah, it's interesting seeing other people's perspective of Ghislaine because like you meet her a certain way and then everybody's like, no, she's actually a feral creature, and you kind of get that vibe from that chapter, which is cool. Yeah, Dragon Lower Jaw and then Red Dragon Upper Jaw. That's interesting. So that's like the mountain range. Yeah. So where would
that's where they ran into Orsted.
Yeah. Where would the that's where they ran into Orsted. Okay, yeah. I got confused. I like they're not on the Barrett guarded continent because they Big Garrett continent because that's where they're going into next.
Yep.
Labyrinth Town Rapan. Okay, that's where they go into that one.
Yep, the labyrinth.
But then where's Bueno Village? It's in the
top
Fito
left.
region.
See how there's the circle, which is like where the teleportation incident was?
Oh, that's where it was. It's outside. Capital 0. Yeah. Oh, so it's in that zone there. Everything.
So that was the
got
teleportation
teleported from
incident, yeah. So it's all that's gone.
Cool.
Pretty crazy.
So that's why it's not on the map because it's just been eviscerated.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. And then the ending of the Varakis, like early on when they're in Varakis and like I completely forgot that like Rudy like makes his hair go blue or like stop being blue, which is crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. No Capra. What a guy.
True. Past adventurer with Roxy. Cute.
I like that chapter when she's talking to Nakafra. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
That
And he has a
chapter
family.
there.
He has kids and stuff. It's cute. Thank goodness.
Yeah, he's got a family.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even pick up
I
that.
think from memory, I vaguely remember him talking about how, oh, my kids, don't kill me, Rudyard.
No,
Like
but
that.
I think he was lying. That's why, like.
But then I thought he talked about it in the Roxy. You'd read it more recently, but I vaguely remember him
Okay,
telling the truth.
cool.
I don't know, maybe not.
Ogre Island. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm looking for the Heaven Continent. Dragon
Somewhere
God's
is the
Hole.
floating dragon armored King Perugius's castle. My goodness.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Perugius. That sounds like the Polish dish. Pierogi.
Okay, sure.
Pierogies. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no, it was all cool. I'm not sure if I have anything else to add.
Right,
I think my main point I wanted to go across was like, just the character dynamics and how most of the main characters feel like they're unworthy. Like Roxy feels like she's unworthy, but Rudy she thinks she's the greatest thing ever. Rudy thinks he's unworthy, but Eris thinks he's the greatest thing ever.
I guess you could apply it to a lot. Like even Paul, for instance, he thinks he's unworthy.
Yeah.
You've got Rudyard, even he thinks he's like unworthy or like he killed his.
Yeah, there was a couple of things where like Rudy was like, Rudy's defense is bad. I thought that was an interesting point. I never thought that before, but it's like Rudy just kind of confirms that Rudy's has got bad defense. Like he's not able to protect himself very well.
Yep.
But yeah, I do like how the elf, dwarf, and beast territories are like tiny on this map. I feel like that must be like.
That probably means something.
Yeah, probably means something. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let me see if I have any particular parts I want to say anything for. God, there's so much happens, Bacon, in all these chapters. Roxy's hometown, heading to Millis, the Fitz chapters we've talked about, Ariel chapters, Eris point of view, Lilia point of view. What else is there? Talking with the man god and rolling at the universe. So right now, basically, what happens at the end of Volume 7? Like, what's the most recent?
He meets Alana Lies.
Okay, so he hasn't enrolled like in the magic university or anything out?
You can kind of assume because it's shown that Fitz recognizes Reduce's name in the epilogue chapter. So.
Okay. Yep. Well.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the volume covers as you read through them or not?
Yeah, they're like the background to the videos. So I'm having a look at them.
How exciting! My goodness.
There was one where I was like, dude, that volume cover makes it seem like Rudius dies. I mean, not Rudius. Rudius dies because he's like Rudius like walking off faded in the distance, but it's volume 6. Yeah. So. Yeah,
there's some good covers coming up. Okay, well, Bacon, I got nothing else. I'm on the edge of my seat to see what you think about the season 2 stuff because that's going to be a lot more fresh for the anime stuff. And the anime season 2 wasn't as good as season 1, so there's going to be a lot more changes and differences we're going to talk about. But yep, anything else you want to say?
No.
All right, well, everyone listening right now, thank you for listening, and see you. Who knows whenever Bacon finishes and whenever we have time to record this. So
yeah, I assume it's earlier than later, so we'll see.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye.